Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will learn from personal stories and explore thought-provoking topics, all with one goal in mind: living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here, and man, we can't do this without you. I'm excited. You guys hear me say that all the time, but I do get excited when I bring these guests on and I get to hear their stories and learn from them and share those stories with you guys, because that's really what we're all about. And I've been reading Zach Mercurio's book. You guys just listened to him on episode 200 again. And he's really all about The Invisible Leader is his book, and purpose. And one of the things he has in there I really liked is the exercise of defining your purpose. So I want to throw this out to you all as a purpose for the On Purpose podcast. We exist to brighten the days of people around the world by sharing inspiring and thought-provoking stories. Hit me up. Let me know what you think about that as a purpose statement. And quite honestly, if you see yourself in alignment with that, if you see yourself aligned with bringing people around the world inspiring and thought-provoking podcast episodes or sharing stories, consider joining us. You can do that a couple ways over on patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast, where we have membership options, or either one. You can also just like, subscribe, and share wherever you listen to the podcast at to help us grow and reach more people. So again, the On Purpose podcast exists to brighten the days of people around the world by sharing inspiring and thought-provoking stories. All right, this week, everybody, I am joined by Patrick Manifold, originally from the UK, a former professional basketball player, now an entrepreneur, an author. And what I loved and what attracted me to him was looking into him a little bit. He said he found his purpose by knowing myself, dreaming big, working very hard, and being willing to learn from others. So I am excited to bring his story to you. Sit back, relax, enjoy this episode with Patrick Manifold. Patrick, welcome to the On Purpose podcast, my friend. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Jerrod. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're honored to have you. We're honored to have you, and it's one of the great blessings in the world is to be able to share somebody else's story and connect stories for people. So I'm excited for what we get to share today.
I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
Patrick, tell us just a little bit briefly about yourself so the community can kind of know what they're in for.
Okay, so very brief story. I come from England originally. Grew up there, played basketball there. That was my biggest passion as a kid. Had a dream of I saw Space Jam when I was 13 years old, and it made me want to go to America, like Michael Jordan, and go to American college and then play professional. So that became my dream as a skinny 13-year-old kid. And then fast forward, 10 years or so, and I went to University of Maine at Presque Isle in Maine, USA. Went there for 4 years, obviously with the desire and the dream to one day turn professional. Unfortunately for me, that happened for me. I worked very, very hard, and that happened. And I toured the world, and I played professionally in Glasgow, Scotland, Surrey, England, Melbourne, Australia, Magdeburg, Germany, and Milan, Italy. And in 2018, I found out about my first daughter, Sophia, when we were back home visiting my family in England. And then we decided that literally within 30 seconds of finding out that we were pregnant with our first child, I retired, which a lot of people think is crazy. And I had a lot of people trying to talk me out of it, but that was my decision. And then I moved to Nova Scotia, where I'm currently at today. And I started a business. I now own a couple of companies, 4 or 5 businesses, and I get to do what I love, and I speak, and I've also written 4 or 5 books. So I keep busy.
Yeah, no, that sounds busy. Real quick, why was it such a quick and easy decision? I'm assuming it was easy because you made it really fast. The decision to retire upon finding out about your baby on the way.
Well, there's multiple things that go into it. One of the things is that I'd played in a bunch of different countries, met a bunch of different people,
Hmm.
and seen people that had kids and wives, etc., back home, and how much of a challenge that was. Some people found it easier than others, but for me, I couldn't bear the idea of missing anything. I couldn't bear the
Mm.
idea of my daughter taking her first steps and I'm in China playing basketball. Do you know what I mean? So for
Yep.
me, that was a big part of it. And the secondary part of it is that maybe something that I don't talk about as much. I had kind of had my fair share of that life.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful thing, living around the world, signing autographs for kids, taking selfies with people in the street, getting to dunk in front of thousands of people. Like, there's so many amazing things about being a professional athlete, but there's also some things that maybe don't get talked about as much that aren't as fun, right? So
Yep.
I didn't own anything. I didn't have a house. I couldn't get married. I couldn't stop. At any point, my agent could call me and say, "Hey, we've got this great offer. Do you want to take it?" And if the answer is yes, I got 72 hours to pack my life up and move to a country where I don't speak the language. Like, there's definitely challenges to that life, and I was ready to. I'd always dreamt, as like alongside wanting to be a professional athlete, I always dreamt of being a businessman. I didn't really know what that meant
Right.
when I was a kid, but there's something about that that I wanted to pursue. So I was kind of ready, half ready already. And then when that happened, I was like, you know what, this is a sign, and I'm gonna start a new life.
I love it, and it's interesting what you said there because researching and looking into you a little bit to prepare for this episode, I noticed a big theme in the content I've seen from you is what you call reverse engineering success of others. And even in that example, you talk about seeing people that had families and the good and the bad that came with it. So you were really
Right.
absorbing what you were around.
Right. And I think that goes both ways. It's not just a case of people think that, okay, I'm going to get around the most successful people in the world and figure out how they do it, and then I'm going to replicate it. It's also getting around the most miserable people in the world. What do you do to make you so unhappy? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop doing that thing. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I think you can, and it doesn't matter if that person that you're talking to is uber crazy Elon Musk successful, or someone that just has, like, I met someone recently and I saw the interaction that this woman was having with her husband, and they're probably in their early to mid 50s, and they were like in love, like they just been together. And I was like, oh, have you guys recently got together? No, we've been together like 35 years. And I was like, I almost swore. I can't swear on this podcast, right?
You can do
I'm gonna
whatever you want. It's a
I'm gonna
podcast.
be
We're free.
polite. But I was like, holy cow. Why are you guys so happy? How are you so connected? And I right there, I basically interviewed him for 5 minutes and learned a couple of things. And now I went home and told my soon to be wife about that. And I think that you can learn something from every single person you meet. Obviously, some more than others, but everyone we meet has a lesson, whether that be that they've done something amazing and we can follow in that or be inspired by that, or if they made a terrible mistake and now we can learn not to make that same mistake. So
I
yeah,
love it.
I do believe those lessons are out there for us.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. And I also I believe this, that everybody has a story and everybody's stories are worth being told. And
100%.
that's what brings us here today. But Patrick, now you're a professional athlete. I can't just get you on the court and have you running sprints and go on full 5-on-5 right away. I got to warm you up a little bit. Like, this is a
Okay.
high level show, my friend. I got to get you warmed up here. So you ready to warm up?
Okay. I'm ready.
But it's not your tradition, not jumping jacks and push-ups and some stretching. We're going to warm up the mind and the spirit a little bit here, Patrick. So get ready and hold on. Here we go. Your first warm-up question for the day.
Okay.
You are stranded on a deserted island. You get one food for the rest of your life. What do you want to be eating?
Pizza.
Ooh, man, it
That was
ran
quick
after my
too.
heart. Yes. What are you going to put on that, though? I need to know.
Well, pizza's the funny thing in my house. So I've always liked pizza.
Yeah.
And then my partner, Chelsea, she came with me to Italy, and we'd go down to get the local pizza, which is, I'm sure, like the average pizza in Italy. And we lived in northern Italy. And first time I had it, I was like, oh my goodness, I've never had pizza before. This is like another level, right? Yeah, and it had like the most basic ingredients on it, but it was incredible. Anyway, fast forward to now living in Nova Scotia. And my partner Chelsea, she doesn't love to cook. It's not her favorite thing.
Right.
But I can't find pizza around here that tastes anything like that. So I request politely that she makes homemade pizza on Saturdays, and we've made it a whole like family thing. But I'm like a guy, like I've got this like salamino picante, which is like this like spicy type of pepperoni type stuff
Yeah.
that goes on top of it. And then she likes things to be always be the same. Whereas I'm like, what if we added caramelized onions to that? What if we
Oh,
added some barbecue base? What if we added some jalapenos? So I'm that type of person that's always trying to take everything I do to the next level.
fair.
So when it comes to pizza, yeah, that's my thing. Especially if I can pair it with some red wine. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm sold.
Okay, and I'm assuming up there this time of year you're inside next to a fire having that warm pizza because you're up in Nova Scotia.
Yes, it's currently minus 15 degrees, minus like 22 with the wind chill. It's chilly. And you told me you're in the desert. Like
I am.
we're on polar opposite sides right now.
That's how the universe connected us, Patrick. Is why we were
That's
meant to
right.
cross paths, my friend.
I like it. I like it.
All right.
But feel free to send some of that sun my way. I'm not going to be mad at it.
How about this? I'll package some sun for some of that pizza on a Saturday night.
Sold.
All right, I love it. All right, you get one superpower. What is your superpower and why do you want it?
Ooh, I feel like I should know the answer to this already. One superpower, if I could have, um, I guess to know the truth.
Mm,
And that's I understand in my mind, so I'm going to try and elaborate on that a little bit.
yep.
But there's so many problems that we have as people and as a society because we a don't know the truth and have never delved deep enough to find it, or b we do know and we're too scared to tell anyone. But I believe
Mm,
that the truth sets us free, and you can look at that as a micro problem between a man and a woman, or a best friend and his best friend, or you could look at it as like world countries. What do you actually want? What's your truth? If I knew what that was, I feel like I could make better decisions, and I think we all could. So yeah,
mm.
it's communication is a big thing. It's a big part of my professional life, and the more I learn about it, human psychology and communication, the more I believe that openness and telling someone, even if they judge you for it, telling your truth and being able to be an authentic version of yourself is way more important than material objects and things like that.
I love it. What about
So
this? Let
yeah,
me add to your superpower here. So you mentioned knowing the truth, like for other people or countries, but what about just what I see as a problem in today's society is that a lot of people don't even know their own truths. They're so
100%.
influenced by everything else.
100%. And I feel like more people need to, I don't want to say wake up, but
Hmm.
start taking a deep interest. Like you know what the truth is? More people in probably the United States of America know more about the Kardashians' life than they do about their own feelings.
Absolutely.
And that's a scary, and I did
Yeah.
not to crap on the Kardashians, but just as an example of like pop culture,
Yeah.
and they know more about their favorite music artists and they've never delved deep into their feelings about why they have commitment issues or why they have this issue or why they have that issue.
Yeah.
The answers are out there, whether
Yeah.
that's through therapy, whether that's through reading and personal development, which is my personal
Yeah.
route of choice. But yeah, the answers are out there, but most people are, I don't know. I think, I guess a question to you. Do you think they're just afraid to know the answer and that's why they don't dare pull at that thread?
I don't know it's fear. I don't know that it's fear. I think what it is, just my guess and my feeling watching and studying humans for most of my life, is they don't want to accept the responsibility that comes with knowing your truth.
Right.
Because if I know my truth, then I also know my untruths. Like, why am I not happy?
Right.
And then I'm
And it's
accountable
easier.
to change it.
Ignorance is bliss.
For sure. Or blame, right? If I don't know, I don't pay attention, then I can just blame everybody else.
Right.
All right. Hey, this ain't my warm up, Patrick. I see what you did there, my
My bad.
friend.
My bad.
All right, let's go. Favorite book.
Favorite book. That's probably quite easy, exception of there's two books, both by Tony Robbins,
Okay, you're a Tony
Awaken the
Robbins
Giant
guy.
Within
Yeah.
and Unlimited Power. Um, one of those books slash both of those books in combination, read relatively quickly, one after the other, changed my life on a level that I don't know any other single thing ever did.
Mm,
So yeah,
I love it. All right, you get dinner with one person. This person can still be with us on Earth, still alive, or they could have passed. Who are you going to have dinner with, and what do you want to learn from them?
it's funny. I When you started asking me that question, I thought I'd go somewhere, and that's not where I'm going.
Okay.
My granddad.
Mm,
I met him when I was a kid, but I never. Not that I want to get emotional right now, but um, yeah, I'd like to know more. And I both of my grandparents, the men, my grandfathers, both of them died before I was old enough to really know really what was going on. So if I could cheat and have two people, I'd have
For
both of
sure.
my paternal grandparents in a room, and I'd just ask them about their life and maybe if they could see me and if they're proud of what I'm doing.
I love it, man.
Um, that would be, yeah. I thought I was, as soon as you started asking that, I thought it was going to be like, you know, Barack Obama or LeBron James or like someone like that. But no, as soon as I asked myself inside, I was like, you know what? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Actually, it's more important to me.
No, I love it, and I bet they'd want to have some of that Saturday night pizza too.
Oh hell yeah! I bet
Awesome.
they could teach me a thing or two as well.
All right, you feeling warmed up, Patrick?
100%.
Good. Well, I appreciate it, man. That's some good stuff, and I too. Whenever I get asked that question about dinner with one person, I always go with my grandma, and I would just want to know, is she proud of us and our family,
All right.
right? Because she didn't get to see
I
the
wish I
kids.
wish I could answer. I wish I could. Yeah, because I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, but
Because
here's
there's
what I'll
things that you don't know that if you knew would just give you so much peace, and unfortunately you'll never know. You can just trust your instincts, right?
Yeah, I think that, and then I think also this, Patrick. I think not knowing
Drives you,
exactly it keeps us
right?
doing this because like if I do this right now, I know she's gonna love it. She would listen to this and she would love your accent and she would want to know about the pizza. She would all these questions. So I know by doing this, like I'm doing that. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah,
100%.
for sure.
100%. Sometimes it's those things that we don't find out until later on, like that parents and they love us or whatever. Maybe we wouldn't have been the person as driven as we were if we had that, right? I
Absolutely.
believe that.
Yeah, it's just like you said earlier, reverse engineering from the good and the bad in the world.
Right.
All
Right.
right, do me. Let's talk about growing up in England. You had a little rougher life when you were younger. Talk to me about growing up and the obstacles you faced, and then what did you learn from that process?
I'd say the biggest, so to give you some context here, I come from a family I have four sisters and no brothers, and I am the middle child of those four girls. So they've got two younger and two older sisters. So I was always a little bit of an outsider as far as I wanted to play football or what you would call soccer. I wanted to do wrestling and do all those stupid boy things, and they wanted to play with Pennsylvania dolls. And, you know, what I mean? Like it was like, I didn't know there wasn't much place for me. It didn't feel like they had, each of them had a best friend, and then I was just this one in the middle, like kind of like on my own a lot. I was a bad kid. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I was. There's some things that happened in my life at home behind the scenes, which I've never really talked about, and maybe not ready to talk about publicly. But things that I went through as a kid that I would never want a kid to go through. And I was kind of dealing with those things, juggling those things on my own. This is before there was any talk of kind of mental health or how to find help, or anything like that. And I would act out because I was always bigger than everybody else. So I was always standing out in a crowd. And I was always I knew what I wanted to do. Like I was always passionate about whether it be football or fighting or whatever the hell I wanted to do at that particular point in my life. I guess I always felt alone, which sounds weird, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I always felt alone. And then as I grew up, I got this reputation as a bad kid. And then when I went to high school, that reputation from middle school came with me, even though it was like 25 minutes away from the town I was in. And yeah, it was like I was tarred with this brush. And then after a while, I became the person that they thought I was, not the person that I actually was, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So like I'd go into the teacher and they'd be like, "Okay, Patrick, you're gonna have to sit at the back on your own, not next to your friend." I was like, "I haven't done anything yet," and they're like, "Yeah, but you're gonna. So we're prepared for that. So you go ahead and hide in the back." And then they wonder why I misbehaved and I was class clown and didn't go to school and do all those things. So um, yeah, that was probably my biggest challenge growing up, all that kind of stuff going on, and then having to juggle situations with my parents, which I guess like a lot of people go through divorces and things like that, moving around and things like that I went through. But I do think that everything happens for a reason. Again, you can learn from it. I read something not that long ago about this study, and it was done between identical twins, and there would be one twin that would like they would say someone with like a father was very abusive physically, mentally, etc. And these same twins, one of them grew up and did the same to their kids and was like, hey, my dad did this to me, so I'm gonna do it to you. This is just how it is. And the other kid grew up and said, I'm never going to let another child, let alone my own child, ever experience that. So that person became like a social worker and made sure that no other kid had to go through that. So I'm kind of fascinated between how two people that come from the exact same environment can choose such different paths. So when I look at the things that I was missing as a child, and whether that be love or whether that be affection or it felt like I was important, whatever those things were, as a father now, I am so adamant that my children will never experience anything like that. And I had an experience recently with my daughter where she asked me a powerful question. I was like, where the hell did that come from? Like, why are you saying that? Because there's never been anything in our house that would make her say that, which again fascinates me that how much young children permeate from society that we have no idea about.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's powerful. I want to go back just a second, though, to that teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So you go into class and you haven't even acted up, but they're already trying to predict the behavior of that day based on what you've done in the past. So they put you in the back of the classroom.
Yeah.
And so then your reaction is what?
Well, honestly, your reaction is, all right, you want me to be that guy? What's this? Hold my metaphorical beer or pencil, was it that case? I was like, you think I'm bad? What's this? And then it becomes like this whole thing where that became my identity. I
Right.
was the bad kid. I was the funny kid. I was the mean, tough kid. That was never who I necessarily was as an individual. That was what was projected onto me. And being a young person, I assume that adult knows more than I do.
Yes.
So it's this kind of, and I said this thing about my daughter recently. She was, can I tell you a little story real quick?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so my daughter is 4 years old, Sophia. And with the whole pandemic thing, she didn't have much interaction with other humans for a couple of years. So her development was kind of a little bit pushed back just because she wasn't able to, interact with other kids and stuff. Anyway, so fast forward, and she's going now to ice skating. And she had an experience recently where she went in the class and she fell over on the ice, which isn't pretty normal. And then she cried and she was upset. And when she came off, I was mad at her for the first time in her life. I was mad at her because in my house, you're allowed to be bad at stuff. You're just not allowed to not try,
Yeah.
and you're allowed to not do very well at things, but you're not allowed to quit.
Yeah.
That in my family, this is a rule that I have. We're brave, even in the face of when we have to be very courageous. That's what we do. So when she came off, I didn't do it in public or anything. We got in the car, and I said, Sophia, I'm mad at you. She said, what? I said, yeah, I'm upset with you. In this family, we are brave. Today, you had the opportunity to be brave. I understand that, you're a little bit scared, but when daddy looks you in the eye and says, baby, there's nothing here for you to fear. Just trust me. And you don't, and you cry, you're brave. And then later on, we take her to bed, an hour or so later. And she says, Daddy, I just want you to love me. And if you knew, obviously nobody here has any context here, but I might tell my daughter Sophia I love her more than 150 times a day, like excessive love, like too much love. So the idea that would even come to her mind
Right.
boggled my brain. I went downstairs to speak to Chelsea. I was like, where the hell did that come from? Why would she even ask that? Obviously, I convinced or tried to convince her that your behavior is not dictate my love for you. My love for you is 100%, no matter what happens. I may be mad and sad from time to time, but I'll never stop loving you. But that experience, and I said to Chelsea, she said, do you think you're too hard on her? I said, no. And here's why. Human beings either shrink or grow to the expectations that those around them have. And that became very quickly, just in that scenario that I just explained about the ice skating, that became so important to me. Yes, I'm sure she was upset, etc. But I understand human beings and what makes them do what they do. And I know that if she walked off and I said, that's okay, baby, that's okay. You can cry. If you don't feel like crying, you go ahead and cry. Or I can say, no, you can choose to be tough. You can choose to be strong. You can choose to work hard. If you fall, you can choose to get back up. Now, this mantra we have, hey, Fifi, which is my nickname for her, what happens if we fall down in life? We get back up, Daddy. Okay. People would say you're crazy for teaching these kind of life lessons to a 3 or 4 year old. And I disagree. I think that the higher the expectations we have of her, as long as that's coupled with love and not mean like we'll beat you if you don't, score 20 points in the game, which is a little closer to what I experienced in my growing up. I think if you couple it with love and safety, that, hey, these are the expectations that we have. And yes, they may be higher than the average person, but I would much rather have high expectations for her and her fall slightly short than for me to have low or no expectations of her. I believe that she'll get closer to that. So yeah, that's a big thing for me right now is the lessons I'm learning from being a father is actually bringing me back to when I was a kid and what I experienced and how if I tell her she's the bravest girl in the world. I tell her she's the strongest, most intelligent girl in the world. That's the picture I'm painting of who she is. So that can become her identity instead of you're bad, you're sad, go stand in the corner, etc.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just add one thing to that. Like, I think it's great to have high expectations for kids. I think it's fantastic to teach them to overcome adversity and to face it with bravery and heart. And then we just also have to balance that as parents, we give them the space to choose their own identity, right? So, like, if they have to do certain sports because that's what I did, and they have to be
Right.
brave and enjoy that, well, then
Right.
I'm actually creating negative impact.
I agree.
Right. Yeah, no. So I 100% agree. And I think that's part of, like we were talking about in the warm up, part of the problem with a lot of our issues in the world and some of our mental health and stuff is the fact that we don't face things when they're easier to face. Right. Like a 3-year-old facing fear and learning, like, okay, it's okay to be afraid. But
Right.
when I'm afraid, what do? I think about it. I go talk to mom. I talk to dad. Why am I afraid? And then we try it together.
Exactly.
The sooner I learn that it's okay to be afraid and still act versus having 20 years of being taught don't be afraid and avoid it at all costs.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of that little baby T-Rex I can hold in my hand.
Yeah.
Do I want to deal with him then, or do I want to wait 10, 15 years until he's that big guy that he's going to bite my head off? I can't be messing with that guy. So,
No.
yeah, exactly. Like, I think that we should all be, and obviously coming from her father as a author of personal development books. So there's obviously going to be a part of that just naturally breeds into my parenthood. But I just believe it 100%. I believe that if you care enough about someone, that you should have those hard conversations and you should be. Tough love gets a bad rep because tough love is like when I think of tough love, I think of how my dad was tough love with me. That's not my version. My 2023 version of tough love. Tough love is, hey, I still love you, which I wasn't getting, but this isn't the way to act in this scenario. When that person says that, you have to have respect for that person. You have to have respect for their beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. You can't be selfish. You can't be these things. Because I think all of us, and I know you're a parent,
Yep.
all of us, it's our duty as parents to bring up human beings that aren't complete a-holes.
Yeah.
Right.
For
And
sure.
I think that's important. I think it doesn't get talked about enough. I don't want to, we are in a fortunate position financially, but that came through hard work. I don't want her to grow up thinking that this is just how everyone is because it wasn't for me.
Right.
We were poor, dirt poor growing up.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any understanding of that. So I don't believe that she's too young at 4 years old to start learning about, like, I ask her now where money comes from because I used to ask kids when I used to go and teach in schools and stuff to coach basketball, and they would always say, the ATM machine, my dad's phone, etc., etc. And now, if you ask my 4-year-old daughter, she said, "Where money comes from work, daddy."
Mm-hmm.
The reason why anyone has anything is because at some point they did work to get that, and she's 4, right? So we're having deep conversations, like the conversations we have over the dinner table. I understand that she's not picking up 95% of it, but when we're talking about economics and margins and business and all these things, I'm explaining that to her as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Don't tell me as an 18-year-old that she's not going to be more advanced in those areas than everybody else if she's been having that for
Sure.
18 years.
That just becomes
So
a norm.
that's just my belief. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk. So people, your childhood, they're having expectations for you that have a negative context. But one of the things I really liked is you talked about the importance of knowing yourself and dreaming big. So so we talked about Space Jam, but when did you realize, like, this is actually a possibility for me if I choose to know myself and believe in myself?
The honest answer is I always had the tendency to dream big. That was kind of like, for whatever reason, that was innate in me, that was born in me. Um, but, and this is why the conversation is becoming so fascinating to me, I didn't want to try too hard. There was a culture where I was from that it wasn't cool to try hard. And that sounds ridiculous out saying it out loud, but genuinely where I come, kind of a very poor part of England. And I had this belief, stupid as it is, that if I only give 75% and then I fail, at least when I look back on it, I can say, oh, well, if I had have tried 100%, then I would have, of course, I would have, succeeded. But, I didn't want to. I didn't feel like it. Who cares? Had this kind of like nonchalant belief because there wasn't people around me that were super ambitious, chasing big dreams. That just, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And if I tell the story about when I try to tell people about what I wanted to do, how people laughed at me. It's like, who the hell do you think you are thinking you can do something like that? Like, get back down to our level, like crabs in a bucket kind of mentality. So it wasn't until I read those books that I mentioned earlier from Tony Robbins, where I was like, wait, what? You can change how you think? Like, wait, what? The rules of the society isn't like it is in my little town of Great Yarmouth, England. Like, it opened my eyes to, it was like, and that now I'd preach so much about creating a life you love, because I understood that, had this epiphany that I understood I could create a life that I love. I could create that vision I have for this incredible human being, this man, this like powerful and charismatic and wealthy and happy and successful and have a great relationship. That version of me that I could see even as a young boy, I've spent the last 20 years like chipping away at that. I don't know if you've ever heard of like how they built David, but he would like chip away. He could see David in his mind, and all he had was a grain, like a big block, and he just chipped away until David appeared. But in his mind, he was already there. And I think of that analogy when I think about myself. I'm still chipping away. I'm far from perfect. My partner will tell you that. But yeah, I believe that the pursuit of being better, that came to me from reading that book from Tony Robbins, because that was a perspective that I had never heard of, never dreamed of, never even fathomed as a reality for me. You either were a professional footballer and you could be rich and successful and happy doing that, or soccer player in the Premier League or something like that, or you were a criminal and you sold drugs and you did things that were illegal to get ahead. And I was upset. I went through a stage when I was a kid obsessed with gangster movies, obsessed with rap music, because those people were intrinsically, that's who I was. As far as I was young, I was angry at the world and I was ambitious. And that's what they talked about in rap music. That's what they talked about in gangster movies. So I'm not trying to glorify those and say those things are good. I'm saying as a young man with testosterone through the roof, those were the things that I connected with. And now, fortunately, I've got to a point in my life where I understood from a self-belief, understanding that there's the elements in that I wanted was nothing about crime, was nothing about violence. It was all about wanting to better myself.
Yeah.
That was the only route they had, and that's why they ended up going down that route. But I have options, and I think that the more people I can tell and teach that they have options, that I can open their eyes and change their perspective. I believe this. I think that might be what I'm here to do. If I had to put it down, that's why I'm here. I believe.
So how would you, for our community out there, say we got some people that are listening that are, before they dream big, they got to know themselves, but they're just like, man, I can't pin this down. Give a couple tips on how they could better solidify who they are.
It's a tough question, but I'm going to answer and see if you tell me if this is a good answer to your question. It comes from self-belief. Like, self-belief is the foundation of everything. Mm-hmm. If whatever it is that you want to do, it doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that this is the only thing I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But if you have a part of you that's calling you to do something, whether it be to learn to play guitar, whether it to be a singer, whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. But you have to have the courage to pursue that thing without the care of what the people around you will say to you. Because it's my belief that if I went to Chelsea tomorrow and said, babe, I know I spoke about all the speaking and writing and doing all that, business stuff, but I want to be an actor. I don't know why, but there's something in me. I want to pursue that. Now, and I've never done that before and never said it. So that would be left field for her. But the funny thing is, she would be like, "Really? Like you're dead serious about this?" And I'd say, "Yeah." She'd say, "Okay," and she'd support me. I didn't always have that support, so
Right.
you're not going to always have people around you that believe in you. When I go back to the exact polar opposite, when I told everybody around me when I was a kid that I wanted to go to America, not even like I can't even tell you how crazy it was for me to tell my friends and people around me that I wanted to visit America, not live
Really?
there, not create a life there, not be great as an athlete. I just wanted to go on holiday there.
Hmm.
Like everyone from where I'm from, it would cost like three, four, $5,000 to do that trip, and most people don't have a spare £20,
Yeah.
right? So the idea of me even going there to visit, so I just got completely shut down. And for the longest time, not to say I wasn't strong enough to not listen to them, but I didn't have another frame of reference that said they might be wrong.
Mm.
I just assumed they were right.
Yep, for sure. And I love that you say you didn't have another frame of reference. And we did an episode way back at the beginning when I first started this podcast called The Circle of Five. And I'm sure you're familiar with that adage that you are the sum of the five people you spend the
Absolutely.
most time with. And what I
Yep.
love about your story is in the midst of the negativity and the low expectations, without people around you that were changing that, you found a book, right? And by
Yep.
reading somebody's book, you basically brought that person, Tony Robbins, and his thoughts and his material into your circle of five. So he becomes one of your
Right.
people,
100%.
which now opens you up to what's possible. And like you start saying, wait a second, I can do some of this.
Right.
And
It's powerful.
I think that's so important for people because we get so caught up in that. Maybe I'm from a small town or a rougher part of town, and like I'm from this neighborhood, and that's all I'll ever be. Well, with the technology and all the information now, you can change your circle of five without ever leaving your house. If you
Right.
take ownership, like you said, you were listening to rap music and watching gangster movies, and then all of a sudden you're reading Tony Robbins books. Well, you come to a fork in the road, right? Like, which way do I want to believe here?
Right.
And we all have that power. And I think that's so critical, like you talking about, to get to know yourself is if you don't have the answers, where do you seek them?
Right. But I think that to your point, with technology, what it is today, like the crazy thing is that people have zero excuses, but the honest answer, like the empathetic answer, is that there's so many solutions that it's probably hard for them to choose, right?
For sure. Yeah, we almost get analysis by paralysis, right? We're always
Right.
inundated with information, so we don't take action.
Right.
And I think that's kind of like the next question I have for you is you talk about living life on automatic. What do you mean by that? What does that mean in your frame of work?
On automatic as far as like who I am as a person.
Yeah, I was reading you. You mentioned that so many people just live their lives on automatic, and then they wonder
Right.
why they're dissatisfied and unhappy. So talk to me about
Right.
that.
Well, I think when I said that, I was talking about the people that go through life and want everything to change, want their life to be better, but they don't do anything differently. They go through the same thing. So many people these days I meet are stuck in golden handcuffs. Like they have a job which pays the bill, like they've got a certain amount of expenses and they've got a job that pays the bill. And then they'll come and sit with me and I'll be like, no, seriously, like, are you happy? No, I'm miserable. Like,
Right.
I hate my life. I was like, so you're sacrificing that for that? Like, that doesn't seem like a fair thing. So, most people, again, that goes back to the conversation that we had earlier about looking more intrusively into, am I happy? Like, if you're not checking in, everyone shits all over the whole New Year, New You thing. Right? They say,
Right.
"Oh no, that's it's bullshit. You shouldn't be, same year, new me, all that kind of stuff." But if you're not checking in at least once a year as to am I happy? Where do I rate my
Mm.
success? Where do I rate my relationships with my wife, with my kids? How am I as a business person? How am I entering the world? Have I changed? Should I potentially look at pursuing something differently? Am I happy? Like the fact that people aren't asking and answering that question on a more regular basis absolutely blows my mind. Like if you're miserable and you're not doing anything about it, I guess I just find that so hard. And I guess I know they feel trapped. I know they feel like there's no way out. But there's so much stuff out there now that you could just Google how to be happy. Like I literally wrote a book. I have a book called Happy Today,
Yeah.
where I got so frustrated one day with hearing so many, because I had at one point I had like, I don't know, like 20,000 followers on Instagram or something, and people would message me every day saying how to be happy, how to be happy, and then I started to just like kind of dig into it, be like, okay, so tell me a little bit about it. And I was getting the same answers, different nuances, but same answers from everybody. And I literally wrote a book about 50 things you could do right now, everything from singing out loud to dancing in the shower to silly things. But
Yeah.
like, don't tell me that you can't be happy unless you have it like a diagnosed problem. And even then, I think this stuff would help. But even no matter what, like so many people are unhappy and they don't need to be. And I said recently in a podcast episode of mine, I said, if you judge a person's success on how they answer one question, are you happy?
Yes.
And if the answer is yes, okay, wonderful. Let's do that. Let's take that to the next level. And if the answer is no, the follow-up question has to be, what are you going to do about it? Because if you're not going to do anything about it, then I can't help you. If you don't make like there's a self-empowerment thing, like, yes, absolutely. If you have a problem, go to someone and find help. But I call them ask holes, where someone will come to you and ask for advice and you'll
Yep.
give them the answer. You'll give them the blueprint. And then 6 months later, they'll come back and be like, yeah, I didn't do that. Is
Right.
there anything else I can try? Well, no, you got to try that thing. Don't ask for help and then not take it. Right. So a lot of people are stuck in that, and that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, people living on automatic is just people going through life without question. Like the shit changes, like stuff changes. Like if your life changes and you have a new perspective, your opinions are then going to change. You shouldn't be glued to who you were as a 14-year-old kid. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be glued to, if you come from a small town, doesn't mean you have to have a small town mindset. What the idea that, like Beyonce, incredible singer, right? Incredible performer. If she'd have stayed in her hometown because she thought that was her destiny to stay in her hometown, she would have never become Beyonce. The idea that you are born and your destiny lives in your hometown, I think is quite ridiculous. That doesn't mean that everyone should leave and never come back, but it does mean that the world's bigger than the place that you were born, and that you should travel, you should explore outside as much as you do inside.
Yeah. Man, I love it. That was very well said, my friend, and fantastic. You know, it's interesting you bring that up because my wife and I, we had our children young, so I kind of say we grew up raising our kids because we were going through life all as a big family, and now we're out on the road, just the two of us, and we do the happy question. I bet probably once a week.
Yeah.
Just to check in, like, how are you feeling? Are you happy with this? And it's crazy in reflection to how many years, because we were busy, right? That's the buzzword, right? Grinding, hustling, busy, build, work harder, work more, that you never really stopped and just looked in the mirror and asked yourself, wait a second, am I even happy doing all this?
Right. And the truth is that when you're in a really terrible place, even something like 5 steps ahead in life is like bliss. It's like heavens. So you assume, you make the decision as someone who's, let's say, unhappy. If I just had $20,000 a year more, if I just had a girlfriend, if I just had that BMW or whatever, and you set that as your target, and then you get it, and you just assume that you're supposed to be happy, that you just it's just this mundane, right? The fact that,
that's almost a lottery mindset.
Question, so.
Right? It's almost a lottery. If I win the lottery, then, man, I'm going to be happy. No, you're not, dude, because if you're miserable right now.
Right. And I think that brings back to communication.
Right. You're going to be miserable with a lot of money for a short period of time. Because if you weren't good with a little bit of money, you're going to waste a lot of money.
Exactly.
But see, here's where I go, Patrick. And this is why I love what you're doing. The Create a Life You Love podcast, the books, and the sharing your story is, the more we talk about it and the more we put it out there, and the more people can say, like, wait a second, like, Jerrod has a podcast and he's not, just to be honest with you, I'm not any more talented than anybody else. I don't have some special thing that's just unique to me that nobody else can have. I just chose not to be afraid. And I chose, like, I want to create a podcast. And if nobody listens to it, then I'm still sharing fantastic stories, and it's grown, right? And I think that's the beauty of using your place in life and the lessons you've received is to share it.
Right. And I'd say that if you had a superpower in this scenario, it's courage. It's courage to be yourself in a world where everybody wants you to be something else, and to not give a sweet
Yeah.
something
Sweet.
what anyone else thinks. And that is definitely not a place where I came from. For the longest time, like I was so concerned with what other people thought of
Yeah.
me. And it wasn't until the last maybe 4 or 5 years that it's not that I don't care. It's just that that person's opinion is nowhere near as important as either A, mine about my own happiness,
Yep.
and B, the people closest to me. Like I do empathize and understand that seeing me from the outside looking in, I like to, I take care of my appearance.
Yep.
I like to wear a nice watch or whatever the case may be. People might look at that and think, oh, he's this and he's that. But that's their opinion and everyone's entitled to it. But it's not my responsibility to care. And not even to not care, it's not my responsibility to change who I am to appease somebody else's opinion.
Yeah. And that whole story may not even be true.
Exactly. Oh,
Right?
most of the time it's not.
Right at the end of the day, like you and I, like we get together and we're strangers, which we're not anymore. Right? We're not anymore, but we're strangers at first, and I'm worried about like, oh, what is he thinking on this? What, like, I create this story in my head of what your story is,
Right?
And for a lot of people, that paralyzes them, right? Like, I'm just afraid to chase my dream because everybody thinks I'm going to fail. Well, maybe they don't think that. Maybe they're so worried about their own situation, I ain't paying attention to you.
Right, exactly, and more often than not, that's the truth. Like I saw Jay Shetty was on a podcast, or maybe it was his own podcast recently. But he said, and I'm going to get this wrong, unfortunately, but he's something along the lines of, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am.
Mm. Say that again?
Once was had enough, man. I'm digging back in my YouTube memories there. But I believe it was something along the lines of, I'm not who I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think that you think I am.
I love it.
Which is, in England, we have a word, it's called bollocks, which basically means that's garbage, that's trash, that's not true. But that's most of us, that's exactly like, I think I'm the version of myself that I think that my employees think I am. And it's not until you get to a level where you have empathy with, you know what, I get why you would think that. Now, by all means, come meet me, talk to me. You'll realize I'm a nice person. But, I'm massive. I'm 6'7". I understand why people would potentially be, men especially, would be a bit standoffish from me. There's this kind of like primal instinct that I don't know. I've always just experienced that in my life. So I've making friends with men my own age has always been up until the last kind of 3 or 4 years when I've made progress personally. That's always been a challenge for me, or it didn't come easy.
Sure. Yeah, and I love that, and it makes me think of something. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, that there's like 600 Patricks on the earth right now. Right? Meaning, like, I meet you today, I have this is my relationship with Patrick, which may have been different than the person that met you in a traffic jam and 100%. You were angry, right? But so there's also that, right? Like, and I call that giving grace. Like, if I meet you and your first reaction is like, well, you were kind of an asshole when I met you at that conference and you were supposed to speak. That's the reality, right? And I give grace and say, oh, I apologize. I was short and my notes weren't working right. I didn't know know if it was going to be right, because we all have that, and I think that goes both ways. Like, I want to be the best me that I can be at all the time, but I'm going to have shortcomings, and it's just going to happen. Right. But so are you.
Absolutely.
So are you.
Exactly.
And if we can give each other grace, one, give yourself grace that you don't have to be perfect to get back up and keep going. And then the people around you don't have to be perfect to stay around you, which I think, circling all the way back, is one of those lessons you are teaching your daughter, is that it's okay for dad to be angry with you. It's okay for you not to be perfect, but what it's not okay about is for us to talk about it. It's not okay for us to hide from it or not get back up and try again.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I am trying to pass on is open communication. So many, and I get DMs all the time from predominantly women, but men too, saying about how they have struggles in their relationship. And very quickly I get to the question, have you told your partner this?
Yep.
Oh, no, I couldn't possibly tell them. Okay, well, welcome to your life. This is it. you will not make progress if you do not change. If you
Yeah.
will not make progress unless, because then if you tell me the truth, you say, you know what, Patrick, I don't like your hair. I don't like it. Okay. Is that a big enough deal for me to change? No. But if you're my wife, if we're together, if you're my husband, and you say, you know what, it may be a small thing to you, but when you shave your hair, I just love it. You know what? It's not that big a deal to
You're
me. So if it
shaving
makes
every
you
day.
happy, exactly. Right. So it's like a small thing like that, which are you willing to change for the right people? Yes. And if it doesn't change who you are as a person, like whether or not you have a beard or facial hair, which I'm seeing you've got the dapper little goatee going on. I like it.
I
I can't grow
try.
that much facial hair, so I'm slightly jealous. That's what it is. I see what's happening right now. But yeah, I think that we should all uh, be able to and willing to change. But there's elements of us which I don't think should have to. I think
Mm.
that we're all unique, and some of those things, you know what? They're not great things. They're not great elements. But if you like, let's say for instance, you're a 35-year-old woman and you're settled down and society says you have to behave now and whatever. But all your life, nothing thrills you more than going out, having a few drinks with your girls, maybe getting a little too tipsy and just dancing the night away. Like that
Yeah.
might not be the most constructive thing and healthy and blah, blah, blah. But if that is shit that you look forward to and you're like, oh my God, I feel so alive, it's amazing. And you don't have a partner that supports that, you might not have the right person, or at least you haven't explained that in a way that they can understand. So, yeah, so going back to what I was saying, when I get those DMs, the question comes down to have you told them? And sometimes it's not the other person. Have you had this conversation with yourself?
For sure.
Have you asked that question of yourself and actually given yourself time to contemplate an answer? And again, it's crickets.
Yeah. No, because it's easy. It's easy to say it's the spouse's problem, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my mom, my dad's all their problem. And the truth is, it's your problem,
Yeah, 100%.
right?
It's responsibility.
Yeah, and I just did an episode on that, and I talked about it's your responsibility to create your value, right? And what you
Yeah,
accept is your value, and what you
yeah.
don't accept to be your value. So, Patrick, man, it's been an honor having you on the show. So you got a podcast, Create a Life You Love podcast,
Yes.
and I got a new book coming out called Optimism Activism.
Yes.
When's that going to release so we can look for that?
You know what? Actually, I finished writing that book in 2017, and I was, getting ready to do it, and then we found out about Sophia.
Okay.
And funny story, I moved to Canada in 2018, late, Nova Scotia. I didn't have any contacts, didn't have any friends, didn't have any money, didn't have anything. I had to start a brand new life, literally from scratch. My partner was 6 months pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a mortgage, couldn't get a $500 credit card. Literally started from scratch with nothing, and that was the biggest challenge for me. But now I feel like I'm in a much better place. So after 4 years of that book just kind of sitting on my hard drive, and now me building a company that I'm proud of, that's kind of not running itself, but it's in a place where I'm very confident and comfortable with where it's at. Now I'm purposing my energy into, again, I talk about create life you love. Let's not be a hypocrite. I
Yep.
love what I do professionally, but me standing on a stage sets me on fire. So I've got
Yeah.
to get back to doing that, because that's who I am as a person. And this message that I want to share with people that I believe can help them, I've got to get back out in the world and do that. So that's why I'm making a push again to get back into my books, get back into posting regularly on social media and things like that. And I don't have a date for you, but sometime this year for sure. And then my next book after that, which is going to be, I believe, my best book yet, which I've just started writing. So lots of things coming up and I'm excited about, but mainly I'm excited to get on stages and start talking to more people like you. Like, podcast has come so far. When I started the Create Life You Love podcast in 2017, it was like a super weird thing to do. Like,
Yep.
nobody was doing it. It was weird. Now it's like, when we were talking about checking you out and seeing your stuff, I was like, this guy's awesome. We've got to talk to him. And now being able to have this conversation and I don't know, there's something about it. The fact that we can connect from this far
Yep.
that's a special thing, and have like a conversation which is edifying, that might bring value to somebody else. That's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Where would you like our community to follow you and connect with you?
Well, it depending on what their favorite their preference is, Facebook or Instagram,
Okay.
where I'm at Patrick Manifold, all one word, everywhere. They can, if they want to know more about my speaking and my books, they can welcome to check out my website, which is my name, patrickmanifold.com. But if they follow me on Instagram or Facebook and they say hi, then I always try to follow people back and interact and do all those kind of things.
I love it. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us this week. It's been an honor to share your story, my friend, and I wish you nothing but the best.
I appreciate that, Jerrod, and thanks for having me. And let me give you your flowers. I, on behalf of all your listeners, appreciate you having these kind of conversations with people. And I think that you're putting a lot of value and love back into the world, and I respect you for that.
Thank you, my friend. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.